So far in this series where I'm explaining to you the greatness of the Bhagwatam, you learn first of all that there are three kinds of scriptures in the world. Three kinds of books about spiritual matters or related to God. One is called Krit Granth. A Krit Granth is one which is written by someone who has not personally experienced God, but is writing a book about God. So that type of book is by its own nature going to be speculative, not based on one's own experience. So these Krit Granth are not an acceptable form of proof regarding God or anything about God. But the other two types, Smrit Granth and Vinirgat Granth, these are both acceptable forms of proof. Smrit Granth is that type of scripture which is written by a God-realized saint, someone who has a direct personal experience of God, which in this context means having seen God. How do you experience, how do you get proof of things in this world? With your senses. You have to see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it. It's the same thing with God. It has to be a direct experience. So someone who has had such an experience is considered to be a God-realized saint, and anything written by such a saint is considered to be valid proof of God's existence and a valid source of knowledge about God's characteristics and qualities and powers. This is Smrit Granth. And then Vinirgat Granth is a scripture which was never produced by anybody, although it's an eternal divine power and it's manifested in this world by God, but it was never created by God. Just like God is eternal, the knowledge about God is also eternal, and that knowledge is produced in a book form through several steps that I explained to you, yet it's not a new creation. It's eternally existing. And when the world is destroyed, when the universe is dissolved, then the books are also dissolved, but the knowledge is not lost. Because knowledge about God is eternal. So the only scripture that fits in this category of Vinirgat Granth is Vedas, Upanishads. Then I explained to you why, even though we have such a scripture as the Ved, which includes the Upanishads, we still need other scriptures in the Smrit Granth category, because those help us to understand the philosophy of the Vedas. So the scripture that I'm talking about this week, it comes in this Smrit Granth category. It was written by Veda Vyas. It is one of 18 Puranas, and the 18 Puranas, I told you, originally were one Puran, which contains 1 billion verses, 1 billion shlokas. But in this age that we're living in now, Kali Yuga, it's produced, this Puran is broken into 18 different books. And it's made a little more concise. In those 18 books, if you add them all up, you only have 400,000 shlokas instead of 1 billion. So out of those 18, the Bhagwatam is one. And this Bhagwatam is very special because the way that it brings all the knowledge together from all the different scriptures, Vedas, Upanishads, Gita, Brahma Sutra, all these important scriptures of Hinduism, all of that philosophy is reconciled into one very elegant description in the Bhagwatam. In addition to this, the Bhagwatam actually contains something very special. You see, God himself, when he visits the earth planet, we call it his avatar, when he appears on earth, he performs many different kinds of leelas. A leela is a divine pastime of God, or any action of God. Some of the things God does are just like getting a job done, you can say. Something needs to be done, he accomplishes it, she accomplishes it. But some of the Leelas are very special because they're actually just an exhibition of God's playful and loving personality. So the form of God that we call Krishna, whose female form is Radha. So Radha and Krishna, they visit the earth planet once in a very long time. Although they come in other forms, because God is only one, but Ananta Nama Rupaya, our scriptures say that God, one single God, has uncountable forms. But this form of Radha and Krishna is very special because in that form God is revealing his utmost lovingness and playfulness and beauty all in one. So in this form, souls have the ability to come close to God, very close. I'll explain more about that today. But these Leelas that Radha and Krishna do have a very special ras. I had explained to you that ras means divine bliss, which is extremely sweet, like sugar, but uncountable times more than that. So you can say happiness, perfect divine happiness. That's what Radha and Krishna revealed through their Leelas. They're revealing that unfathomable sweetness of their own personality. So that's called a ras, like something you would drink, nectar. That nectar of their Leelas is actually imbued in the Bhagwatam. So I've been giving you some examples from history of other God-realized saints who hadn't experienced the sweetness of Radha and Krishna's Leelas, but they had attained God in another form, and when they were exposed to the sweetness of those Leelas, they forgot about the other type of bliss they were experiencing, and they indulged themselves in and drowned themselves in the bliss of Krishna's Leelas. So that bliss is actually imbued in the Bhagavatam. But you have to be qualified to truly experience it. A God-realized saint can just read the verses of the Bhagavatam and directly experience the bliss of those Leelas that are described, those stories about Krishna that are described. When we hear them, we can also experience something, but not the full extent of it until we reach that level of being God-realized. However pure our heart has become, that much we can experience. So I was telling a story yesterday that illustrates this unique and supreme quality of the Bhagavatam, even as it's related to other scriptures of Hinduism. So I'll recap the story a little bit for you. Naradji, who's a famous saint, had come upon a scene in Vrindavan, which is a holy city of India. And there he saw a beautiful woman and two old men lying near her, and then other maidens surrounding her, and he had approached and asked as to what was happening, because this woman appeared to be distraught. So she explained that she is Bhakti Mahadevi. Bhakti means devotion. But devotion is also a divine power. So all divine powers, by their own nature, are personified. So Bhakti Mahadevi has this form, and her two sons were the old men lying near her, Gyan and Vairagya. Gyan means knowledge, and Vairagya means detachment. Because devotion to God leads to knowledge and detachment. So she explained that due to the effect of Kali Yuga, the age of materialism in which we're residing, she and both of her sons had become very old and weak because no one in Kali Yuga was adopting them. They were scorned in this Kali Yuga. But when she came to this holy place of Vrindavan, she was renewed, but her sons were not. So she asked Naradji's help. Naradji thought maybe by reciting the Vedas or the Gita or the Brahma Sutra that possibly Gyan and Vairagya could be revived. So he recited these scriptures many times, and although they had some effect, Jnana and Vairagya remained in that sleepy, elderly state. So Naraji sat down to think, and he thought of Krishna, and then there was a voice that told him, there's something great you have to do, and you have to find out what it is from the great saints living in holy places. So he wasn't told exactly what it is. He went around to all the holy places of India and asked all the saints living there, and all of them were mystified. They said if reciting the Vedas and Gita and Brahma Sutra is not going to revive them, we don't know what will. So, not having found his answer, Naraji went up into the Himalaya to a place called Badriban, a very isolated place up in the mountains. And he sat down thinking that I'm just going to have to keep doing austerities and devotion to Krishna until I get an answer, because no one has been able to answer me yet. So, as he sat down, 4 eternal saints came and approached Naraji. These 4 saints are called Sanakadik Paramahans. They're 4 5-year-old boys who are eternally absorbed in the bliss of God and just keep walking around. They can go anywhere they want. There's no restriction for them. So this Sanakadik Paramahans, they came and they approached Naraji and asked him what was bothering him. So Naraji told them the whole story. And they said, oh, Naraji, there's only one thing that will fix this situation. You have to arrange a recitation of the Bhagwatam. That you didn't tell them, right? Naraji said, no, I didn't tell them the Bhagwatam. We have to arrange that. So Naraji asked, where should we do it? Because it's not a small thing. Having a recitation of the Bhagwatam is a big event. So he was told, go to Haridwar, which is on the bank of Ganga. There's a place there called Ananda Ghat. It's a beautiful sandy wide bank of Gangaji. There are many saints living, both visible and invisible. So go there and arrange the whole thing and announce to everybody, and then we'll come and tell the Bhagavatam. And don't worry about Gyan, Vairagya and Bhakti, because wherever the Bhagavatam is recited, they come automatically. So you don't have to tell them to come, they'll just come. Naraji went and made all the arrangements, and aside from just ordinary people, there were some other amazing personalities who came and sat in the crowd to listen to this recitation of the Bhagavatam. All of the holy rivers of India in their personal divine forms, and all of the holy places of India, the Tirth of India, also came in their divine personal form and sat in one section. Then other scriptures in their divine personal form, like the other 17 Puranas, the 6 Darshan Shastras, all the Vedas and Upanishads, they all came in their divine personal form, and they occupied one section. And then many, many saints came with their families and their pupils, and so the crowd swelled. Then Sanakadik Paramahans came and sat, and they were going to tell Bhagavatam. Now Naraji had a question for them. He asked that, why is it when I tried reciting Vedas and Upanishads and Brahma Sutra and Gita, why is reciting the Bhagavatam going to work when those didn't? So Sanakadik had a very interesting answer. They said that, you know, Naraji, because Narad was saying that whatever knowledge is in Vedas and Upanishads and Brahma Sutra and Gita, the same thing is in the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is said to be the essence of all those other scriptures. So why would the Bhagavatam work when those other scriptures didn't? So they said, well, think of it like this. If you've got a mango tree, the same thing is in that mango tree, the roots, the bark, the leaves, as is in the mango fruit, right? There's no difference chemically speaking. All of those cells are basically the same. It's made up of the same substance, yet there's a big difference between the fruit and the bark or the roots or the leaves of the tree. So that fruit has something special. That's the essence of the mango tree. It's the same thing with ghee. Ghee is like, we call it clarified butter in English. It's like, not exactly that, but basically that's what it is. Ghee is in milk already. So you know that ghee is in milk, yet you can't use ghee and milk the same way. Milk is milk, and then when you churn the milk and extract the curd from it and then boil that down and you get ghee, then you can use that ghee for so many things, which is very different than how you would use milk. So are the two things the same? Yes, the two things are the same, yet ghee is of more value than milk. The mango has a greater value than the tree itself. The sugar that comes out of the sugar cane is of more value. It's a very special and exciting thing, which is not found in the cane itself in its original state. So in the same way, the Bhagavatam is the essence of all of this knowledge, so it has a very special and powerful effect. Let me just give you an example. People are very familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, or the Gita. It is said that where the Gita ends, the Bhagavatam begins. And in addition to that, whatever philosophy is in the Gita is also included in the Bhagavatam. So how does the Bhagavatam go further than the Gita? I'll just give you a couple of examples. It's important who the listener is. Every Hindu scripture is revealed in the form of a conversation. So the Gita was a conversation between Shri Krishna, who is God himself, and Arjuna. Now, Arjuna, if you're familiar with the Gita, you know that he was confused. He had a basic confusion which is shared by all of us. We believe ourselves to be this body, when the fact is we are the divine soul. So we're eternal, we can never die, we have been forever, and we will continue to exist forever, and this body is only a temporary covering which we have changed uncountable times in our uncountable past lifetimes. But we don't live in this consciousness. We live in a body consciousness where we identify ourselves with this temporary body and we forget that we're the soul. So in other words, it's a form of ignorance that we live under, and it conditions all of our other thinking. It's like if you're working on a mathematical equation and you're going to need maybe 9 or 10 lines of calculations to solve it. And let's say in the very first line you make a mistake. Based on that mistake, you go on calculating the other lines, so that mistake goes on compounding. So by the time you get to the 10th line, your answer could be miles away from the correct answer, even though you made only one small mistake in the first line of calculation. Similarly, as soon as we start identifying ourselves with the physical body, all of our other decisions are conditioned by this. We believe that everything in this world should make me happy because I'm the body, and this world relates to my body. My body is a physical thing, this world is a physical thing, so I should be able to find happiness by enjoying the physical things of this world, by seeing something beautiful, tasting something good, hearing something nice, having a nice touch. All of these things are supposed to make me happy, and they would if I was the body. But it's our own experience that although we get some sensations by experiencing the sensual objects of the world, we get some excitement or some agitation, sometimes disappointment, but all of these things do not reach to the depth of our being, to our soul, because our soul is divine and it doesn't match up. It doesn't relate to the material energy that this world is made of. Our divine soul relates to God because God is divine. So only divine happiness or God's happiness can make the soul happy forever. And this world, we get some comfort and some excitement from it, but it's kind of like a child who's hungry, and while he waits for his mother to feed him milk, what does he do? He sucks on his thumb. So that thumb is like a pacifier for him. It's not satisfying his hunger, but it will keep him from crying for a while. So although our true desire is for God, but we pacify ourselves with the temporary pleasures of this world, it's enough to get by, but it's not truly satisfying to us. All of this is based on that initial assumption that I'm the body. So as soon as I start believing I'm the body, then I chase after all the worldly pleasures, forgetting about God, because I've forgotten about my own divine self. Anyway, this is the basic confusion that Arjuna had. In other words, Arjuna was an ajnani. Ajnani means an ignorant person. So this is not meant to be insulting in any way. It's just a statement of the fact that when you don't know something, it means you're ignorant of that thing. So the word in Hindi is ajnani. We're all ajnanis in this, from this perspective. So Arjuna's platform from which he started asking the questions, which led to Krishna revealing the Gita, was this place of ignorance where he was attaching himself, his own identity, to the body. And that was the source of all of his discomfort and suffering. So Krishna had to educate him. Who is the listener of the Bhagwatam? The listener of the Bhagwatam was in fact already God realized. King Parikshit was already God realized. He had no confusion, he had no fear of death. I mentioned to you yesterday that when he learned that he was going to die of a poisonous snake bite within 7 days, he felt no fear. He said, oh, okay, son, you take the throne. I'm going to the forest, I'm going to sit on the bank of Gangaji and just think of Krishna. That was it. So he was already a jnani. He had that knowledge of who he is. He understood that his body is going to end one day. Okay, so it's coming in 7 days, that's fine. What will I do for the next 7 days? I'll just think of Krishna Leelas. It means that right from the start, the Bhagwatam is beginning from a higher level. It's assuming you already know you're the soul, and then it goes forward from there. Where does the Gita end? The Gita ends with liberation, what we call moksha. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. In Krishna's final teaching to Arjuna in the Gita, he says, basically summarizing everything in the Gita, he says, leaving all other practices, just surrender to me. If you surrender to me exclusively and wholeheartedly, I will relieve you from all of your past actions. All of your past karma will be deleted and you will be liberated. Liberated means liberated from the effect of your uncountable past actions, liberated from the bondage of Maya, liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So then what happens when you're liberated? Your soul is liberated from needing this material body, and your material mind is also left behind, and then you merge into God. What aspect of God? Because God has many aspects. You merge into his formless aspect, which is basically the dormant divine existence. Dormant in this way that none of God's characteristics are manifested in his formless aspect. No form, no personality, no activity or actions. Just an ocean of divine peacefulness And when you merge into that ocean of divine peacefulness, you become peaceful, but you are not aware of your own blissfulness, because you don't have a body or mind or senses with which to know anything or experience anything. So this is the state of liberation or moksha, which you hear about a lot in the Hindu scriptures. It's a state of non-experience. You still exist. You don't cease to exist, but you cease to experience anything. There's something beyond this. Many people don't know this, that the state of liberation is only one type of divine state. There's something else beyond this. The state of liberation doesn't actually sound very appealing, at least to me. Having a state of no experience is a little scary to me. I don't want to not experience anything. I don't want to lose the awareness of my own existence. I want to keep experiencing, but I want that experience to be blissful. So there is such a state beyond the state of liberation, where you actually get a divine mind and divine senses and divine body, just like you need all of these faculties to experience the material world. So you have material faculties. In the divine state, you can receive divine faculties to experience God directly. That's when you can see, touch, smell, hear, taste, everything in the divine world, if you go beyond this state of liberation. So the Bhagavatam teaches this, that there is something beyond liberation. Whereas the Gita finished with liberation, the very second verse of the Bhagavatam throws out liberation as a goal. It says, Dharma prodhita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam vastavamastu vatra shivadam tapatrayon moolanam Shreemad Bhagwate Mahamunikrite kim va parairishvara Sadyo hridyavaruddhyatetra kritibhi shushrushubistatchanat. This verse says that what is taught in the Bhagavatam is kaitav rahit. Kaitav means a deception, and rahit means without. So what is taught, the path that is taught in the Bhagavatam is without deception. So what are the deceptions which are not allowed in the Bhagavatam? The saints, all the saints who have written their explanation of the meaning of this have said that there are 4 types of kaitav. The 4 traditional aims of human life that people generally associate with Hinduism: dharma, artha, kam, moksha. So this is rather surprising to people when they hear it for the first time. Dharma, artha, kam, moksha. Everybody knows these are the 4 aims of human life. Dharma means you perform good actions. Artha means you gain wealth and possessions in this world. Kam means you try to satisfy your desires in this world, enjoy the world. And moksha is what I just explained, liberation. But all 4 of these in the Bhagavatam are said to be deceptions. That there's something else beyond that which you're meant to be aiming for. There's a 5th aim of human life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji, a very famous divine personality from 500 years ago, he said, Pancham Purushartha Sei Prem Mahadhan. Purushartha Shiromani Sei Prem Mahadhan. In other words, there's a 5th aim of human life which is beyond these 4. It is the divine love of God. Divine love is what you experience when you interact with God on a personal level. And that divine love is an actual power. It's the essence of divine bliss, which is the essence of his personal power. Bliss is a power in the divine world, and the essence of bliss is love or prem. So that is the ultimate goal of a soul. If you get that, you got the best thing. And when you get that, you get a divine body, senses, and mind, so you can experience God and interacting with God directly. In other words, you can take part in those leelas forever in the divine world. But if you get liberation, you'll remain bereft of that forever, because liberation is forever. You merge into God, never to come back on this earth. Nasa punaravartate, nasa punaravartate. Ved says you never get reborn on this earth once you get liberated. So it means that you remain in that state of kind of like a divine coma state, where you're not aware of anything yet you exist. You remain in that state forever. That is moksha. That is why that same Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji says, Paramadhye mokshavancha kaitava pradhan. Out of all the deceptions, liberation is the worst deception of all, because once you get it, there's no coming back. So you'll be bereft of divine experience forever, and you'll also be bereft of experiencing this world. The other three are not as bad, because they keep you in this world. If you follow the path of good actions, you are rewarded according to the law of karma. The highest reward you can get is to go to Swarg. Swarg is also called the celestial abodes or heaven. But this is within the material realm. These heavens, this Swarg, it's not beyond the material realm. It's not in the divine realm. It's just a higher material state. It's a place of reward where you're rewarded for your good actions. But since you perform a limited number of good actions, so your stay there is also limited, like paying for a hotel stay. When you run out of money, you can't keep staying there. So you pay for your stay over there in Swarg, where things are very enjoyable. You pay for that with your good actions that you did while you were here. Eventually it gets used up, then you come back here and start again. So Swarg is a place you go and come back. Go and come back. This is the place you perform the actions. That's the place you're rewarded if you did a great number of good actions. If you did a great number of bad actions, there's another place we call Narak. It's called hell in English, but it's also temporary because you did a limited number of bad actions. So go like going to jail. Serve your jail sentence in Narak, then you're released. Come back here, start again. So this is the eternal cycle of birth and death, where we're always performing actions and we're receiving the consequences of them. Punyena punyalokam nayati papena papamubhabhyameva manushyalokam. Mundaka Upanishad says, if you do a mix of good and bad actions, you're just reborn here right away. But this is the only place you can perform what we call karma, which means a fruitative action, an action which is going to bear fruit, that you'll have to receive the consequence of, good or bad. So it means that if someone thinks by simply doing good actions, they will attain any eternal perfect happiness, it's a deception. You get a temporary reward for good actions. In order to attain eternal happiness, you have to attain God, and that is attained by following the path of devotion to God, the path of Bhakti. There's nothing wrong with doing good as well, but good actions alone keep you within the cycle of birth and death. You have to add those good actions to the prime thing, which is devotion to or surrender to a personal form of God. So this dharma is a deception, arth and kam, trying to accumulate more in this world and enjoy more and more in the world, that's also a deception, because it allures us with the promise of happiness. We all live in this hope of finding happiness. Every one of us sitting here woke up this morning thinking, If I just get this thing, I'll be happy. If I just do that, I'll be happy. The same thing we've been thinking every day of our life. So we're always living in hope, but we never reach the finish line. We never get to that place where we say, yes, I did it. I'm happy. There's nothing more for me to do. I'm totally content. So it's a deception. The world keeps us going along, just like if you attach a stick with a carrot on the end of it and hang it just out of the reach of the nose of the donkey, and he lunges forward, lurches forward to try to get the carrot, and lo and behold, now he's pulling the cart like you want him to. And he never gets to the carrot, because as he moves forward, the carrot keeps moving forward. So we're under this illusion that, oh, happiness is just out of my reach. I just have to reach a little further, run a little bit faster. Just around the next corner, happiness is waiting for me. But it's an illusion, like a mirage. It looks like happiness is there, but when you get to that point, oh, there's no happiness, because it's just ahead. Like when you're wandering in the desert and there's a mirage, oh, there's water over there. So you run to that spot. Oh no, there isn't water here. Oh, but it's just ahead. You keep doing that until you're dying of thirst in the desert, and never understand that there never was any water. So similarly, this world is always offering us the hope of happiness, but it never completely fulfills that desire for happiness. So it's also said to be an illusion, or a deception, a kaitav. But the path taught in the Bhagwatam is free from any kind of deception or kaitav, because what is taught in the Bhagwatam is to attain God, where you get to directly experience Him personally. And not only that, in a very intimate way. Sadhyo hridyavaruddhyate trakritibihi shushru. Bhagwatam says, if you follow what we're teaching here, you can actually capture God in your heart. You know, like you can capture someone else's heart in this world, meaning they fall in love with you. They'll say, oh, you own my heart. You can do that to God. There's a secret how to do it. The secret is very simple. The Bhagavatam teaches selfless devotion. Selfless means not asking for anything, just having the feeling that I have to give myself to you. I belong to you. I'm yours. So there's no demand. There's no asking God for anything. There's just a feeling that as a soul, I belong to you. That's it. So I'm giving myself to you. You can call it surrender. You can call it love. Any soul who thus surrenders themselves to God, God does the same thing in return. This part is told in the Gita. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tas tathaiva bhajamyaham. However you love me, I love you the same way in return, Krishna says in the Gita. So if you give yourself to Him with no strings attached, He gives Himself to you. He says, this soul surrendered to me and didn't ask for anything. What should I do? I'll give myself to that soul. So it is said that one of God's qualities is Bhakti Vashya and Bhakta Vatsal. It means the one who gives his heart to God. God is captured by the love and devotion of that person. It is subservient to that person. Aham bhakta paradhino hyasvatantra ivadvija sadhu bhirgrasta hridayo bhaktair bhakta janapriya. The Bhagavatam, in fact, Shri Krishna is saying in the Bhagavatam that I am subservient to my surrendered devotees. They have surrendered to me, and I have surrendered to them even more. I have made myself their slave. They own my heart. This is the secret of what's taught in the Bhagavatam. In other words, the Bhagavatam tells you what you have to do to get the maximum closeness to God. Don't separate yourself by keeping a bunch of desires between you and God. Just know that you and God are eternally related. The Gita indicates this relationship when it says, Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasa Sharanam Surit. It tells that you have all the relationships with God. God is your divine father, your divine mother, your brother, your sister, your friend, your beloved, your daughter, your son. You have all the relationships with God. So Gita indicated that in one verse only. And Gita also says if you want to attain God, then Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mami vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. That you have to give your heart to Him. You have to give your mind to Him. It's not physical surrender or verbal surrender. It's mental surrender. You have to surrender your heart and mind to God. Or you can say you have to love God. But Gita does not go the next step, which is to tell us how to love God. You can use your common sense. How do you love someone? Well, first there has to be a form. You can't love a formless energy. You love an individual, a person, something that has a form. And secondly, there has to be a practical relationship between you and that individual. In other words, who are they to you? So in the world, we have some basic categories of relationship. You could be a servant and someone could be your master. That's kind of distant. But not as distant as if you were a subject in someone's kingdom. You're just a subject. You can admire the king from a distance, but you have no right to interact personally with him. The servant is much closer. The servant has access to the king's inner chambers to go and clean and do whatever he has to do to serve the king. But closer than that is the relationship of friend to friend, or brother to brother, sister to sister. This is much closer than being someone's servant. Even closer than that is the child and parent relationship. There's even more closeness in that than there is in a friendly relationship. And the closest relationship of all is the relationship of beloved to beloved. So these are the categories in the world. So we can adopt these same ways of thinking about God. In Hinduism, it is taught that God has a form, and the most loving form is Krishna's form. So with Krishna, you can have any or all of these relationships. But how to love Him like this? In order to surrender your mind to God, you have to love Him. So how to love Him? You should adopt one of these relationships in your mind. Think that Krishna is my best friend, or He's my brother, or He's my child, He's my son, or He's my beloved, my divine beloved. When you start thinking in your mind of having this relationship with God, then God ceases to be just God for you. Just God is kind of scary. Krishna showed His godly form to Arjuna on the battlefield when Arjuna asked, I want to see your almightiness. Krishna revealed that to him. He gave him divine eyes, and He showed His absolute, unlimited, almighty power. Arjuna was trembling before Him. How could you love such an almighty, awe-inspiring, divine power? You can be respectful, you can be awe-inspired, but it's very difficult to love God when you think of God as God. There's a distance. Well, you're God and I'm just a soul. So when you start thinking of God as something more than that, my friend, my beloved, my child, then God has come right to you. Now there's no distance between you and God, so now you can love Him. And He gives you permission. He says, that's fine. If you want to think of me as God, okay, your choice. But if you want to think of me as a friend, then I will think of you as a friend. If you think of me as your child, I'll think of you as my parent. If you think of me as your beloved, I'll think of you as my beloved. Imagine total freedom to love him or her any way you want. This is the freedom we have with Krishna. And this is why the descriptions in the Bhagavatam are so important for us as devotees of God who are trying to develop love for God. What is the basis of our meditation? What is the basis upon which we can develop these feelings? The material of the Bhagavatam is there for us to make use of. In other words, when Krishna came on the earth planet, He revealed these kind of dasya bhav leelas, where there is someone serving Him and He's the master. He revealed sakhya bhav leelas, where He had friends who treated Him as an equal. They didn't treat Him as God or a king. They treated Him as an exact equal or even a little less. How do you behave with your friends when you're a kid? You play with them, you tease them, you joke with them. Krishna actually played in that way with divine saints who loved Him as a friend when He came here on this earth planet. So He revealed those types of leelas. He also had saints who were His mother and father when He visited this earth, because they loved Him not as God, they loved Him as their own child. So He behaved as their own child, and He Himself thought of Himself as their child. In other words, He forgets He's God. That's what I'm saying, that you capture His heart. He forgets He's God, totally. He says, no, you're my friend. I've forgotten I'm God, totally. He's not acting or pretending. He truly has forgotten He's God, and all He remembers is, you're my friend, or you're my mother, you're my father, you're my beloved. So Krishna revealed all of these types of relationships through those leelas that He did when He was on the earth planet. And all of that is recorded in the Bhagavatam. When you read the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, you can read all about all the things Krishna did when He was on the earth, and that becomes the material for our devotion. How are we going to love God? We read about these leelas, and then we just insert ourselves and say, I want to be His friend, or I want to be a gopi, I want to be His mother or father. And you meditate on that, and that act of meditation purifies your heart and becomes, it's actually the means of practicing devotion, what we call bhakti. This is how we meditate on the path of bhakti. We meditate on the form of Krishna and on His leelas. And that creates a union between our mind and God, who is omnipresent. That purifies our mind, which is a gradual process. When that process is complete, then God graces us with divine mind, intellect, senses, body. Then we get to receive that ultimate divine experience, which is absolutely blissful and which lasts forever. Then the soul knows true happiness. Then the soul has met his eternal divine beloved, and for all eternity experiences that happiness. So all of this was to explain to you what is special about the Bhagavatam, and why Sanakadik Paramahans told Narad Ji that we have to tell the Bhagavatam, even though none of the other scriptures worked. There's something special in the Bhagavatam, so if we recite the Bhagavatam, then Bhakti, Gyan and Vairagya, well, Bhakti had already become youthful, but Gyan and Vairagya will be returned to their youthful form. So they did recite the Bhagavatam, and Bhakti, Gyan and Vairagya all came, became young, and danced, listening to those Krishna Leelas, and everybody there got to enjoy hearing that recitation of the Bhagavatam. There's one more famous recitation of the Bhagavatam, which I'm going to tell you about tomorrow, when Gokarna had to try to help his brother Dhundukari, who had become a spirit who was wandering in the spirit world and was trapped, and he had to make use of the Bhagavatam to try to help him. So I'll relate that story tomorrow, which is the final speech in this series on the Bhagavatam.